We'll now turn to Dr. Augustine A. Lado, who's Assistant Professor, the Department of Management and Labor Relations at Cleveland State University. He's also the chairman of the Coalition Against Slavery in Mauritania and Sudan, which is referred to as COSMOS, and president of Pax Sudani. And he was also born originally in Sudan and educated in the Sudan and in the United States. Dr. Lado.
Thank you very much for that introduction. In fact, it takes some time away, from me having to introduce myself, and that is good. What we hope that we will have achieved in this gathering, to begin with, is that to not only come here and state and probably even assert to you that slavery exists in these countries, in Mauritania and Sudan. I think by now it only takes a short brief walk to the library, the public libraries, to a postage stamp, to get information from the UN, from the credible human rights organizations, to provide you ample evidence, even if you choose to disregard what we have to say, that indeed slavery does exist in this country, in these two countries. However, I must also state upfront that it has, for the emerging abolitionist movement, really been a very, very difficult challenge for us to try to get into the mindset of constituents in this part of the world that to believe that slavery does exist, and I hope that we will have moved beyond that. Also, the Sudanese and Mauritanians have actually been filtering into this country, and especially for the Sudanese. The largest number really can be traced to the periods between 1990 and now. And you'd actually ask why is that so? And it is precisely because these people have been outcast from they've been kicked out from their country. And I could also talk to in my own behalf that I was born in Sudan. But in the first civil war, we had to move to Uganda. I took refuge in Uganda, and now I'm a refugee in this country for the very same situation that exists today. Now, to get right to the issue of slavery in Sudan, I think it is important to emphasize the fact that what exists in the Sudan are both the chattel slavery in the sense of buying and selling, owning and brutalizing of fellow human beings by other human beings. The chattel form of slavery does exist, and it is raging. The other form of slavery that also does exist is the institutionalized form of slavery. And it's important to emphasize this point because the institutionalized form of slavery, calls into question, the role of the government, in fostering, this heinous system in the country. And it is also important to recognize that the institutional context provides, the medium, the environment for the chattel slavery and other forms of oppression to occur. And a very important element of the role of the institution, the role of the government is what my friend Charles Jacobs had already indicated, the fact that jihad has been declared in the country as we speak. In fact, it has been flourishing for quite a while, and the declaration of jihad has to do with the targeting of a particular group who do not happen to, who happen not to believe in, in the government or in the ruling groups, religious, cultural, and racial, ideologies, and they are being targeted for, for a cultural, what has recently been referred to as cultural genocide. The other dimension of the institutionalized form of slavery is that all forms of the superstructure have actually provided either covertly in terms of tacit condonation of the slavery in the various successive regimes in the past, or in the current regime, overt participation in the system of enslavement. And the current government is overtly participating in the system, we believe, and we have every reason to do that. I mean, coming from Sudan and all the information we get, is that the government supplies arms, the government has created various militia groups, and all that firepower and economics is supplied by the government for the ordinary Arab citizens in the country to go ahead and burn and loot African villages, capture women, capture children, and sell them into slavery. And the government also encourages a policy of forced Islamization and forced Arabization. And these terms basically refer to the intent, the concerted effort on the part of the government to convert non-Muslims, who are the majority of whom are in the Nuba Mountains and in the southern parts of the country, into Muslim. And not only is that enough, the government also tries to encourage a policy of converting these very blacks, these very Africans, to become Arab. And I will leave the details of the individual cases and acts of enslavement to the eyewitness accounts. But I would like to set this whole context so that we are in a clear understanding of what is going on in the Sudan. And then to move right, because I have only probably 2 minutes left, to move right to what needs to be done. What needs to be done is that the world should really rise to its moral conscience, and that moral conscience has got to start right in this hall. I would hope that you don't actually leave this meeting with the impression that it's an interesting issue, but we've had interesting issues before, and that you'll have moved out and gone out with a zeal to try to combat this heinous system. The second point is that it is very befitting that we are talking here at Howard University that the leadership has to really start in the African American community. We cannot fight, Africans cannot fight the enslavement in the continent alone. They need their fellow kith and kin in the diaspora. But the fight need not only be left to to all Africans, whether in the continent or in the diaspora. This is an issue that affects everybody. It demeans modern civilization, and it requires the participation of everybody. Those in the media need to take up the issue and consistently and in concerted ways, focus on the issue so as to bring an action to put an end to this heinous system. I'll end there and wait for questions.
All right, thank you very much.